Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today. We are on episode 101. After a couple weeks off, I just got back from California, getting real spoiled with the sunshine and time with the family, and happy to be back with you all and with an amazing guest. I can't wait for you to meet her, for her to share her story. One thing that's kind of just present to me right now, something that I'm spending a lot of time with my mom in her garden, and she's a very avid gardener, amazing. I telling her that she is the most. Our house is the most beautiful house in the neighborhood. Not for any architectural reason, but just because the love she's put into it, and just the garden is just an expression of her heart. And one thing I'm always like learning lessons from her that I don't expect to. And she was talking about how she was. I think I've talked this with Matthew before. How, like, in the analogy of life being a weed, or life being a garden, and there's weeds and there's flowers. It's like my mom was taking weeds that were in her garden and she was repurposing them and putting them on other sides of her garden. And it just made me like realize, just like, all a weed is a flower that we, or subjectively I, don't like. Like, it's like, so one person's weed could be another person's flower, or one person's flower could be another person's weed. There's certain flowers my mom's just like, I hate those flowers. But it's so. And I think that's kind of how life works. It's our experiences, the things that happen to us, the things we go through, and the things that others go through are, we can choose if it's a weed or if it's a flower. And there's always a way to present a weed in a beautiful way, and you can see and you can experience beauty in something that part of us says is ugly, or someone else says is ugly. And I think it's such a beautiful analogy for life. It's just the garden, whatever we water is what grows. And if we feel it's ugly, we're going to keep watering the ugly weeds. But if we're looking for beauty, we're going to keep watering that, and more seeds of beauty, of possibility, just arise just by how we focus our thoughts and our listening. But I'm just excited to be back, and thought I'd share a little bit of garden wisdom that I got from my mom. But before we introduce our guest, let me welcome our co-host, Matthew. Matthew, how you doing today, brother?
Doing good, brother man. Doing good. Kind of chilling at the house. We're in a bit of a lockdown situation at the moment because one of our roommates has COVID. So it may be a little bit noisier than usual. I may experience a few interruptions here and there, but um, yeah, it's like so far everyone's fine. Like no one's really sick. It's been since Sunday, so yeah, we'll see what happens. Um, I appreciate that garden analogy, and it is something we've talked about before. But there was something else I heard in it today that feels appropriate to bring up, and that is, you know, the only difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment, right? Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of saying your point to, and that points to something else, which is the difference between a judgment and discernment. And to me, a judgment is saying something is bad. Like that is bad, that is wrong, that is, good, that is right, that is whatever. Like you're actually assigning a state of appropriateness to another thing, basically. Whereas a discernment is that isn't appropriate for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not judging the thing, it's recognizing that that thing isn't worth bringing into your life at that particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people get lost in that. Like there's this. I mean, like I know I certainly did, especially with the whole flower thing. I remember when I was gardening, I was constantly pulling out weeds and like, these are bad, these are awful, these are not good for the garden. And then like, years later, I'm working with someone else, and it's like, oh no, that right there, like that one thing that I was pulling out as a weed is like actually one of the most nutritional plants you could possibly grow.
Right.
And it's like, well, I okay, so that's different. Um, and I feel like that happens a lot. Um, like it's even happening with COVID. People are
Hmm.
like out there judging COVID and saying it's an awful thing and it's causing all these bad things. Well, no, it's just a thing that's happening, and yeah, it might cause pain and suffering. It might even cause death. Um, but in and of itself, it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing that's happening. And how we react to it, how we respond to it, I feel like is the more important question. Are we going to respond with fear and shy away and try to control other people and tell other people what it is and what it isn't and what they can and cannot do? Or are we going to respond with love and wisdom and intuition and, you know, our own natural, I don't know how to say it. There's something else there, but are we going to respond with love and respect that this world is what it is? Um, you know, Death comes to us all at some point, and suffering happens, and it's how we respond to that suffering that really defines us, nothing else. At least as far as I can tell. Like this is just my own musings, right? Um, and that goes back to the difference between a judgment and judgment and discernment. And you know, it also points to the paradigm shift that's happening right now that we've talked about a lot on this show. The shift from operating from a fear-based society to a love-based society. The shift from looking at the world and shying away from it and trying to control versus looking at the world and embracing it for what it is and loving it and jumping into it heedless of, you know, whatever. Um, I feel like I'm doing an awful job of explaining that right now, but maybe that's something we can dive into more later.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying, and I think I mean, this is the ever present, you know, moment of what's possible. It's like if we listen for what bad things can happen, if we're coming from a place of fear and survival, we're just going to notice more things to be afraid of and to survive. And it's, and if the opposite's also true in another paradigm, it's if we look for the beauty even in the ugliest of situations, we're going to find it. If we look for the, ways to be grateful for, or things to be grateful for when we feel at our weakest, that's where the most growth, but also fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness in life comes, not in the moments we expect, but in the ones we don't. And I think that's, we can't expect or plan or control those moments, but we can paint with the colors in the can, or we can paint with what we're given. If life gives you lemons, you can't make apple juice.
And like you were saying, if all you look for is beauty, that's all you're going to find. It's that simple. Like to me, it's that simple. If all you look for is beauty, you will find it in everything.
Absolutely. I think that's a good note to welcome our guest. I'm really excited to
Yeah.
have her. Let's bring her to the stage. We have with us Elaina Yutze Sandler. Hi, Elaina.
Hi. That's the
Hi.
first
Thank
time
you for being
anyone
with us.
said my whole name in front of other
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it's so real.
Oh, it's
Newlywed
an
over
honor.
here.
It's an honor to be your first
Congratulations.
guest.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to piggyback off what you guys were saying because it's in theme of what my whole morning was like. And I just have like a little
Yeah,
tidbit to add
please.
to it, even though it's like a little off topic of
No,
what
please.
my talk is about or what my poetry is about. But this morning, I walk every morning and I was listening to Brene Brown's Unlocking Us podcast with David Kessler. And David Kessler is a grief and loss specialist. He's an expert in the field. He's written lots of books. And he talks about judgment discernment. And literally this morning, I was listening to this. And he talked about how judgment responds with punishment. And discernment can respond with curiosity. Is this good for me? When is the time and space to move forward with this? And curiosity leaves a lot of space for compassion and empathy and kindness. And so I was just thinking like, oh man, I really want to piggyback on this because I spent so much time kicking this around in my brain pan and how judgment really responds with punishment. That's bad. or that's good, or I can't do that, or, just a more firm response. So I just wanted to add that to the pot.
I love that. And I would also add to that list on the discernment side is creativity. I feel like with judgment, there's not much space for creativity. It's, we're trying to control an outcome as opposed to like curiosity is like as a space for creativity, for not the things just not reacting and resisting and going against the grain. It's a space to be surprised and to excited, or it's like, oh, what's that? Or what's that? It's not like oh my God, this is bad and I'm afraid and it's scary. And it's like, you're not like overwhelmed by your emotions where you can't even, I just feel like it's very easy to be clouded in our emotional state, where usually in our worry, we don't even see the best path forward, or whatever experience or emotion we're having. But usually like that can get in the way of us of actually what we really want. And I think that's a powerful, I love it. And there's no accidents. And there's the fact that you heard that this morning is, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, actually. Like, I had no earthly idea where that was coming from when I brought it up.
I think it's important to discuss, though. There are two very big differences. I am helping raise my 12-year-old cousin right now, and that is something that we are very much exploring in 7th and 8th grade, and as we move forward into high school. Judgment and discernment and your responsibility in all of that. So it's a big hot topic in my house right now, for sure.
That's amazing. And there is one thing, there's another level to take this to as well, which I feel like a lot of this comes down to a particular person's relationship with pain. So people who are generally adverse to pain, and this was my experience as well, like I used to run away from pain all the time, and like running away from pain, I would automatically jump into judgment. Like anytime I was trying to avoid pain, straight to judgment. But once my relationship with pain shifted and I saw it as something that I could learn from, and something that is, the Buddha even said pain happens. Like that's kind of, it's like unavoidable, it seems like. And so once I shifted that relationship with pain and started really playing with it, okay, what can I learn from? What is this here to teach me? What is this showing me? What is this telling me? That shifted over into discernment. And that brings up the curiosity, which is what you were talking about. Like, okay, let's play with this. Like, yeah, it hurts. It sucks in the moment, but like, how can I use it? Where can I go with it? What can I do with it?
Yeah, I think you skipped a really important piece between the pain and the sitting with it, is the courage to sit with your stuff. And I think judgment can sometimes be an easy way out. If that's good, this is bad, I don't have to sit with what's happening and move through it. So I think that's also a really important piece too. That's so hard. It's so hard.
I get it. Well, I think this is a perfect time, on that note, just please, we want to hear. I know you have some poems, you have a short story, but whatever it is you're called to share, I'm really excited to have you, Elaina, to share. What you've shared with me already is inspiring. So I'm excited to have you share with us here. So please, without further ado, if you're ready, Elaina, the stage is yours.
Thanks. Well, my name is Elaina Yutze. Welcome to my TED Talk. Just kidding. I write short stories, I write poems, and I am really going through a lot with my own family right now. My mom is battling stage 4 lung cancer, and there's a whole lot of different things happening in my family right now and in my life. I'm a writer by trade. I'm a copywriter. I have owned and ran my own business for the last 4 years. And so writing has been my sanctuary and my place to really pour out all of the stuff that's going on. So I've been writing a lot about pain, loss, trauma, everything in between, and writing a lot about how absolutely isolating this experience can be. I am a primary caretaker for my mother, so I'm an only child. I don't really have anyone to lean on in this experience, and so as I've walked this journey with my mother, I've noticed that not a lot of people know what to say to me. They don't know what to, they don't know how to talk to me, and my friend group has kind of dissipated. And so this next thing that I wrote was kind of my way, not kind of, is my way. It's just one little piece of a way that I've wanted to explain to people what it feels like when I'm going through without them having to have the conversation with me. It's these little pieces that I've been writing are kind of my way of connecting with my world while I feel like I'm drowning. So this little short tidbit is called Pray. Prey. Cancer is like watching Nat Geo on TV, the part where the predator is chasing the prey, and you think the prey might get away, but it doesn't. And you know what happens next, but you can't change the channel. You have to watch the prey be eaten alive without looking away. Except this time, the prey is the person you love the most in the whole wide world. And the predator is an animal that can't be punished or tamed. So that's one little piece that I wrote about what this experience is like, watching my mother, the only person that I have, the only mom I have, be slowly eaten alive by this thing that is untouchable, and there's no way to wrangle it and control it and gain closure and fight. So that was something that I wrote and published on my Instagram today. So do you want to talk about that, Abram? You want to jump in on this?
We can, yeah. I think Abram is listening and working on something else in the moment, but
Oh,
I I feel you on that one. Cancer is a fickle thing. But that's weird. That's the word that comes, fickle. But that's what it feels like to me. It's one of those things that's if you want out, here's a way out. But at the same time, it seems like it comes to those who aren't ready yet. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I've had several friends that have gone through cancer, and most of them have recovered. Um, and at some point, every single one of them had to face the question, do I really want to be here?
mm-hmm.
And the ones that recovered are the ones that chose to be here.
Mm.
Um, and that feeling of being stalked by something that you can't see, you can't touch, you can't control. Like, how have you responded to that in your day-to-day life? Like, besides writing, besides putting it on the page and publishing it, like, what other things are you doing to be with that?
So this might sound absolutely insane to anybody that is watching this or reading this, but I actually I decided to take part in something that's called the 75 Hard, if you guys have ever heard of this. And it's a mental grit, like just toughness challenge, because there were days and days and days when I just couldn't get out of bed, and I was drinking too much, and I was just really going down a bad path. I've been married for 3 months. It's not a cute way to start your marriage. And I have struggled with some alcoholism in my 20s when my boyfriend died when I was 21. And I went through some really unique challenges early on in life that I think really set me up for this phase, for this season in my life. And I know exactly what not to do and what happens if I do these things. So, I was in bed, I was depressed, I was doing this, I was doing that. And then I met a friend at a show, at a DJ show. And she said, yeah, she told me about another friend that she had who had done this challenge. And so the 75 Hard is created by this guy called Andy Frisella, and it's about 75 days. You work out twice a day for 45 minutes. One has to be outside, one's inside, no alcohol, and no, it's like, no eating shitty food. And you have to read 10 pages of nonfiction every day. So like, whether it's self-help or business or whatever it is, right? Something that is truth, that's encouraging, that it could be business minded, it could be something to propel you. And I'm on today's day 40, and it's been amazing for me because I have an outlet. And I'm in this really healthy routine where, I like bought a whole like little home gym. I have slam balls and battle ropes and whatever, because I'm pissed, in the short term of how I'm handling this, I'm splitting at the seams with rage. And so this challenge, or whatever it is, a program, it's not, I haven't even told anybody about this. My family doesn't even know I'm doing this. This is not something I'm like talking about on Instagram and like sending pictures of my butt and stuff. Like that's not, that's not at all what this is. This is for me to have structure in my day. And I really had to commit myself to doing something that was going to take me out of the misery that I feel. Truly just sheer misery. And it's saved me, to be honest with you, just my commitment to being out. Like I get up every morning and I walk, every single morning. I don't drink coffee. I don't anything. I get up, I put on my shoes and I get out the door, and it's seeing the rising sun. It's hearing the birds. It's being in my body. It's knowing that I wasn't drinking the night before. It's having a clear head. It's talking to my mom on the phone while I'm walking in my headphones. It's those pieces that help me every single day just digest that I have absolutely no control over what's happening with my mom. But I have control over my life, and I have control over how I was talking to my therapist about this, that with my mom being sick and cancer and all this stuff, it kind of feels like an overflowing toilet. And you want to control the water. You don't want it to get in the carpet in the living room, or in the bedrooms. You want it to stay in this place. But with cancer, you can't. It is water. It flows. It's going to get around stuff. It's going to go through. It's going to sink in. And I feel like this challenge, the 75 hard, of just kind of owning, being responsible for myself, it's helped me to contain the water a little bit and not have it leak into every single crevice of my life. So that is how I've been handling this, barely handling this, this huge catastrophe and tragedy and crisis in my life, just by committing to showing up for myself every day, which is hard.
It is hard, and that goes back to that courage you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, and there's something like there's another question there I'd like to ask, which is what brought you to that place of courage?
Um, I, to be honest, be vulnerable. I am at the peak of my life right now. I have a relationship that I'm really, really proud of, that I want to keep, and I have a business. I have a business that I love doing what I love. I have a life that I've built. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. I put myself through college. I've done everything on my own, and I'm just not willing to let that go. And I know that if I give in and I don't have that courage to show up every single day, and maybe this is that judgment piece that's like based in fear and demands punishment, but in my mind, I just fear that everything I love is going to go away, and I know that this situation is the effects. I know that I'll feel the trauma and the loss and the grief and all the things that are happening forever. It'll ripple on for my lifetime, but the intensity of this moment is not forever. The decisions I make inside of this moment could be. And so I am trying very hard to be courageous and strong and compassionate for myself on the days that I'm not, and move forward. That's the courage. I just want to keep my life together.
It's so powerful. I mean, there's so much in what you're saying on the surface, but what what inspires me, one thing that inspires me about you, Elaina, is that despite going through all that, you are still manifesting and sharing this gift just with your art and your writing for others who might be going through the same thing, who might be going through a very similar situation. And it's like when you share so vulnerably, and you do have, like, you're not trying to be courageous, you are being courageous, just you're sharing and talking about it, and writing and putting your heart on the page and on the palette, and just letting others just experience what you're going through. I mean, that gives others the power to do the same. And I feel like you can't even measure the kind of impact that has on people. That's what's, it's just very inspiring. So I just really acknowledge you for that. Just being such a diamond and pearl of humanity, just under your pressure, that your beauty is shining.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to read this next piece because I think it flows nicely into that. It's another just short poem.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching this, and whether, your mom has cancer or whoever, or there's some other situation going on that enrages you, I just want you to know it's okay to be furious and to be rageful and to be angry. And I think that death and dying is already taboo in our culture. To talk about it, to lean into it, to make it a norm of conversation, because it's like, ooh, we don't want to talk about that. Guess what? None of us get out alive. we're all headed for the same ending, but there isn't any space to be angry in our culture. There isn't any space for rage. It's almost just as taboo as talking about death. Oh, she's angry, or they're angry, or, oh, handle your shit. Like, sometimes life just like takes a dump on you, and it's okay to feel rage. I really don't think it's something that you have to go deal with in your room by yourself. It's not a punishment. It's a natural reaction to our world. And to dismiss rage and furiousness and anger, deal with it in a healthy way. It's not, at the end of the day, it is your problem. You have to take responsibility for your energy. It's not, you can't go out and hit people with your car or anything like that. But it has to be felt, and it has to be expressed among trusted people that you love, that are going to love you no matter what. Because if you don't express your rage, and you don't own, like, this is really unfair, I'm pissed, I'm hurt, it doesn't go anywhere. It just sits inside of you. And then it explodes, and it's way worse than just expressing it and feeling it. And that's kind of going back to the courage piece that we talked about earlier as well, like sitting with your stuff. No one wants to sit with their shadows. No one wants to sit with their ugly. Like, nobody does, but it's so important because it's a part of what makes you human. We're not pretty perfect creatures. We're animals that happen to be smart. That's really the only difference.
I would say at first. I feel like no one wants to sit with it at first. But like, there came a point where I recognized that not sitting with it was because I didn't love myself. And now to me, sitting with it is loving myself. And I really
Absolutely.
embrace that and enjoy that. Like, it's actually become a practice where it's like, yeah, okay, this is where I'm at right now. Whether I'm, enraged beyond all recognition, or just absolutely totally depressed and lost in my own sadness, like, sitting in that is the most loving thing I can be for myself sometimes.
And it feels better.
It
Who doesn't
does.
want to feel
Yeah.
better? And
Yeah.
I feel like you
Exactly.
get so much more connected with yourself, and accepting yourself. And then suddenly you're not so wildly dependent on someone else accepting your anger, or thinking, oh, do they think I'm crazy, or, I'm out of pocket or whatever? It's like, who cares? You're cool with yourself. You know what's up. You know what's going on inside of you. So I'm going to read this next little bit. It's called When I'm Gone. And this is kind of about what we're talking about, just like being the imperfect human, right? When I go, do not romanticize who I was. Instead, remember the times I let you down. Remember the times I fell short. And remember that I was only human doing my best, just like you. And I wrote this a little bit ago. I was on a run and I was kind of kicking this around because I've lost a lot of people in my life. Really young, really tragic, out of the blue, people that were very close to me, my dad, my brother, my boyfriend, my grandparents when I was really young, when they were really involved in my life, dramatically and very quickly. And so I remember a lot of the bad stuff. You know, my brother had a head injury that made him a little violent, and he had a lot of anger. My dad and my mom were on the verge of divorce right before he got in a motorcycle accident. And I remember so much about them just being imperfectly human. And as I got older, I realized that I loved that piece about them. And when people die, we have this really natural, it's like an instant natural thing. And don't get me wrong, it's lovely. But I feel like when people die, we have this natural inclination to romanticize who they were, and we forget all the times that they dropped the ball, or that they let us down, or they did the crappy things. And I don't mean to say this, and that's what we should remember about people and be angry and hold a grudge or whatever. That's not at all what I'm saying. But they were human, and I feel like to romanticize who they were was to take away their delicious imperfection of being alive and making mistakes. And when I think about the people that I've lost in their true essence of all that they were when I knew them within the container of our relationship, I think about it with love and compassion, and it makes me remember who they really were. And so that's kind of the essence of exactly what I was getting at with this little short poem. And obviously, if you were to read some of the stuff I'm writing right now, a lot of it's dark, but it's real, and this is just where I am mentally. But yeah, I think that when people go, you should remember all the pieces of them. Like, I'm not a saint. No one is. And that's why people like us. You know, it's what makes us impactful. So,
Oh, um, something that came while you were talking is, what is the driving force of natural selection? Diversity. And if we create a society in which people aren't allowed to be perfectly imperfect, then all of a sudden we're killing our own variation of natural selection. Like we're not allowing people to make mistakes. We're not allowing people to grow. We're not allowing people to learn from things that have never happened before.
mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of the frustration that comes from like this type of discussion is there's not a lot of examples out there of people who have actually come through the other side of that. Like where they've actually learned the lesson from the trauma, they've learned the lesson from the pain, they've learned the lesson from the suffering, and they've come out stronger and better because of it. And now they're out there teaching that to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't see that very often in this society.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the piece that most people tend to miss is that there is something on the other side of the suffering, and that something is unknowable while you're in the suffering.
Oh man, yeah.
But once you get to the other side of it and learn the lesson, that may become your greatest gift. Like that suffering, that pain that you went through may actually become your greatest gift.
That's so powerful. And I mean, I think it brings a full circle with what we were talking about at the beginning. It goes back to the judgment. It's like when we are judging the experience. Oh, this is a bad thing that happened to me. This is like, it's like when we're judging, that's when we run to the victim mentality. When we actually can accept where we're at and what we've experienced, and have a real honest inquiry about like what this experience maybe something happened, but what am I telling myself about what happened? What is the stories that I'm repeating? Where does the pain exist? Because that thing that happened, it happened. It hurt. It really was traumatizing. It really made a lot of things uncomfortable or fill in the blank. But it's ultimately when we are judging that experience, judging those, like that's where the pain cycle comes. It's when we feed this story based, like, there I am in pain. Here's my story about when I was in pain and I'm in pain. And hi, it's like, so every conversation or interaction we have, it's like we're talking as the person who identifies as the pain that happened to it. We're being our pain rather than seeing it. And I think that's what I really hear what both of you are saying. It's like when we can, this is what I love about art. I think I may have talked to you about this, and I brought this up on the show before. This is what I love about human expression and art. Whether it's music, whether it's the written word, whether it's spoken word, whether it's canvas, we take what we're experiencing in it, whether it's deep trauma and just huge things we've had to face. It's like we can take that, what we've experienced, and our dread and our anger, our fear, our pain, or whatever it may be, and we put it on the palette, we put it on the page, we put it on the canvas. And in those moments when we do that, we're separating ourselves from our pain. We can look at it. We can kind of look at it like, here's what it looks like this way. Here's what it looks like. But it's like, for those moments, it's like we aren't our pain. And I think that's something and I'll say, speaking for myself, is like when I run from my pain, that's where I get stuck. It's like a Chinese finger trap. The more I try to pull away, the more I experience that pain, because I'm not being honest with myself. I'm not being authentic about how I'm really experiencing those things that happened to me, and how I've carried those stories from the past into my future, and carrying them like they're these lead weights on my back, when I'm not even honest about it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fine, and it's like lying to myself and lying to the world while carrying a heavier burden with my story and how I spit in my head. I'll spin it and let it go on autopilot for years.
Yeah. Another thing that was in this podcast this morning, it's crazy all these things are but David Kessler talked about the 6th stage of loss or trauma or whatever is meaning, finding meaning. And I think that's totally in alignment with what you're saying right now, is like, I went through this really, really crazy thing. And, it's one thing to accept what happened. I don't think that's enough. I think you have to move forward with meaning, of the meaning of, okay, what can I get from this? What happened? How did it change me? Because all of these instances were never the same person again, right? It's always different. I know right now, when all this is done with my mother, I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to be in a new skin. I'm going to have a new mentality, and I'm going to have to find meaning, right? I'm going to have to go through all these stages and find meaning of what happened, and how to move forward with my life, and sharpen the tool that I got from that experience and put it in my toolbox and move forward. And so I think so much of what you're saying is so relevant, is, find meaning in what happened in your story, and try to have the courage to pivot and change your perspective on how to move forward on the other side, and embrace this new thing that you've become after going through a storm, essentially. Or it's like, surviving a house fire. All your shit's burnt, but life is still going, and you have to figure it out and build a new house. And I think the tools in your toolbox help you do that, right? From these things that you go through.
Yeah, and there's not many people who have the, I call them spiritual tools, but the structures in place that allow them to actually create meaning with awareness.
Yeah.
Because you know, our minds, like, this just seems to be a function of how the brain works. It's like it just creates meaning. And the problem is, for a long time, it was happening without my awareness. Like, I wasn't aware that my mind was doing it. And so, just a little example, like, say I was in the grocery store and I saw my buddy John, and John walks by and doesn't say hi. Well, that's just what happened. Like, I'm standing on the grocery store, John walked by, John didn't see me, John didn't say hi, and leaves the store. What I realized was in my head, there's immediately a dozen different stories that are coming up about why John didn't say hi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he must be mad at me because, my girlfriend and his girlfriend got into a fight last week, and like, whatever that story is. But like that that ability of the mind to create meaning happens so fast that for a long time I did not recognize the difference between what happened and the story my mind was telling me about what happened. And I thought the story was what actually happened. So like instantaneously it was like, oh, John's mad at me because his girlfriend and my girlfriend got into a fight and now we're not talking. That's what happened. But that's not what happened. What happened was I was in line at the store, John walked by and didn't say hi. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
And so the ability to actually stop and sit with what's happening in the moment and come up with the meaning that works for us in that particular moment is something like it's a tool that not a lot of people have access to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it changes as well. I think that's something, if you do have access to it and you have gone through really incredible situations like that, um, the meaning can change as well. It's not definite. It will continue to change as your perspective on the situation changes.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about it is we get to learn something new every single time.
Absolutely.
Like we're
Absolutely.
not stuck in this static way of looking at the world. Like this is what the world is. Well, no, this is just how I see the world right now.
Yeah.
That can change 30 seconds from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it changes with traumatic situations. The story that I sent you, Abram, very clear that I had one perspective. And at the end, I realized that perspective was not the truth of a situation that happened. And I had to find a different meaning in it and move forward with my life. So
Yeah,
it's,
absolutely. Would you, and no pressure, but I would love if you're willing to, if you would like to share that story. Are you prepared
yeah,
to?
you want me to read it or you just want me to
Yes,
paraphrase it? Okay, hold on. Let
please.
me get it. Um, I feel like I should like give a forewarning because
Mm.
it's for real. Um, it's a real thing. Come
Let
on,
me say, you don't need
dude.
to explain or justify. That's what this space is. This is the space for vulnerability. So you don't
Yeah,
have to
let me
premise it.
Yeah.
let me get it up really fast.
Yeah.
And it feels like it ties into a theme that we've had on the show for a long time now, which is on the other side of trauma lies wisdom.
Yeah, I think what's important about that as well, and what I'm learning is that I think a lot of young people think this, that when they learn some wisdom about a situation, that they suddenly arrive. They're done
Hmm.
learning.
It's a
Um,
checklist. It's not a practice. Yeah.
that ain't the way this goes, boo. It goes on and on and on. And there's so many lessons. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm good. I got this. I learned. I figured it out. And then life's like, oh, yeah, let's see how you feel about this.
Right?
All right. I'm just getting this up. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're
You're
good. Well,
good.
while you're getting it up, I'll just to kind of piggyback what we were just talking about. With the meaning we add to the things that happen to us. That this is true for like personally, but it's true. It's fun. It's like how people with our environment or with the state of the world, how we're like, oh, those like wherever you stand politically or with masks or the vaccines, it's like people will say these blanket statements like those damn anti-vaxxers or the damn vax or whatever. It's like we will make a general judgment of humanity. It's like, oh, if the world wasn't on fire or this, and it's like we are so quick to sum up our environment, ourselves, and others with the meaning that we make just based. It's like we're frustrated with a lot of people doing something or that we experience, but we will make it like the whole world is that way, and to the point where we're acting, or it occurs like the world's on fire, and then we only see all the headlines that are scary. We only see the things that are scary when that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism. It's what makes people feel safe when you label
Mm-hmm.
things. I have an anthropology degree. I spent years and years studying human evolution and social change and group thought and all this crazy stuff. And it's so interesting to see the political climate since, 2008. Like, holy moly, it's been a wild ride. And just to see how much people want to protect themselves and they want to label things like, oh, that's bad. Those damn Democrats, they just want free everything and da, da, da. It's like, come on, man.
For me, that's the greatest irony. Like, because you're right, it is a defense mechanism. But it is what's the great irony of that. To me is it's this defense mechanism. Ultimately, it's survival. It's protecting ourself from really from learning the lessons that we're afraid to learn. It's like we think we're protecting ourselves, but we're really hiding from what we perceive as failure to not learn what would really ultimately give us peace and what we want deep down.
Absolutely. It sounds so archaic to link ourselves to different species of, humans and humanoids and all this to all these years ago. But the way that we think is still so similar. We fear the things that we don't understand because they might kill us. It's in our blood. It's the line of who we are. So people are still engaging in that kind of thought without any awareness to it. Like, oh, this is a modern world. Not everything that I don't understand is going to physically attack me and take everything I've worked hard for and kill me and my family. All right, I got this up. Are you guys ready to?
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah.
Bring it on.
Please.
All right, cool. Paul. All right. I had a dream about Paul. I hadn't seen Paul in 15 years, so I was surprised to find him lingering in my subconscious, dancing through my dreams and making me feel things in the middle of the night. Weeks later, he popped up on my Facebook friend suggestions. I thought, okay, universe, I'll play. We connected, and soon we had plans to meet for dinner. I was eager to ask him questions about the death of my brother, questions that I didn't have the courage to ask at the tender age of 13. My brother died in a car crash in 2003. Paul was the only other person in the car with my brother that night. He was also the only one who survived. Paul was 17, and my brother, Chance, was an immature and rowdy 18 years old. Smoking weed, barbecuing steaks, and being boys in a lonely small town on a Saturday night. They took the truck out for a joyride. The truck lost control when rubber tires met a dirt road at 80 miles per hour. The truck flipped over, pinning my brother's legs under the cab. While Paul recalled the incident at dinner, he told me that Chance was conscious when Paul crawled out of the upside of the truck. Chance begged him to get the truck off of his legs. Paul tried, but of course couldn't lift the truck by himself. He ran for help as Chance screamed. He could hear Chance scream until he ran over a mile to the nearest neighbor's house. Chance screamed until he bled to death. He was gone by the time anyone came to help him. Questions answered, I sat in horror as tears streamed down my face. Chance died 17 years ago, and I still can't keep my shit together when I talk about him. I'll miss my brother until the day I die. Paul had been out of prison for 3 weeks. My brother's death inspired a meth addiction for him, and Paul stole cars and whatever else to support his habit. He lost 6 years to a state penitentiary for burglary and assault. The flame from the candle on the table flickered on our faces, and Paul couldn't stop staring at me. I was dating Paul when Chance died. He was 4 years older than me, a completely inappropriate situation for a young 13-year-old, but my mother allowed it. My father died 3 years before Chance did, and my mother had taken to alcohol to cope with her pain. Alcohol, mixed with a drug-addicted and alcoholic lover, made for plenty of distraction. She was busy, to say the least. My body was soft and doughy as a young 13-year-old. I was a late bloomer, and I didn't acquire the attention of men until I was nearly 20 years old. But I had Paul's attention now. As the conversation shifted towards us, Paul's body language changed. He asked me what I thought about him and what memories I had of him from all those years ago. I remembered him being silly and doing what he could to make me laugh. Once, he paraded around Walmart with a huge box of tampons on one shoulder, banging his head around as if he was keeping rhythm to a faux boom box made of cotton and string. The thought made me laugh out loud. Time has a very funny way of romanticizing the most painful of situations. I told him the thing that I respected most about him was how gentle he was with me back then, never forcing me to do anything I didn't want to do and never taking advantage of me. We kissed and light foreplay happened, but never any kind of penetration. I don't ever remember feeling uncomfortable. When I said this to Paul, he readjusted his body in a way that made one thing clear. I was missing something. His hands were shaking. He was starting to sweat. I didn't quite understand what was happening, and I dug deeper. You don't remember, do you? I don't remember what? I said. We didn't have sex. Wait, did we have sex? Paul looked at me like he had something to say, and that he really, really, really didn't want to say it. After Chance died, you went to high school the next year. You lost your virginity to Kenny. He dumped you right afterwards, and everyone knew about it. You got slut-shamed really badly. It was awful. Yes, I said. I remember. It was my life. And I was getting somewhat defensive, but more so deeply inquisitive. You really don't remember this, do you? Said Paul. And I said, remember what? Paul said, I never wanted to be the one who took your virginity. So when you gave it up to Kenny, I figured I'd try to get in your pants. I came over to your house and I forced you to have sex with me. I guilted you into doing it and I forced you. It was physically painful for you. I never forgave myself for doing that to you. Elaina, I wasn't kind to you. I took advantage of you in every way I knew how. I spent a lot of my life wondering if I ruined yours. I felt physically ill. Vomit crept up my throat. A near complete stranger just reminded me that he had raped me. I had been in so much pain and had endured so much trauma that my mind had completely blocked it out of my memory. The feelings came rushing back. When I thought about this event, I suddenly became familiar with this dark hole in my stomach. I remember cutting my wrists and screaming in my room and wishing that I would die. Feeling and breathing and existing was impossible back then, and in an instant I remembered it all, and I could hardly breathe. He asked me if I was okay. He looked me in the eyes and told me he was sorry over and over and over again. He said he couldn't believe that I showed up for dinner because he didn't think I'd ever forgive him. And I didn't forgive him. I just forgot. I left dinner after choking down my vomit and claiming that I was okay. I left telling him that I forgave him and that my life had been extremely hard, but that I had made the best of it and I was thriving now. I left after I put on a parade of fake smiles and downed beers back to back to back after not drinking for weeks prior. I was so pumped full of adrenaline that I didn't even feel buzzed. I left feeling damaged and broken and used and thrown away. I left as a victim of rape. I sat in my car for a few minutes in the parking lot. I sat there waiting for a feeling to emerge, a feeling that I could hold on to and use as an umbrella from the moment. And I couldn't feel anything. All I could measure was the hole that was in the middle of my chest. It was growing. I couldn't stop it. I was paralyzed, and I suddenly didn't care. Defenseless, helpless, brokenhearted, and abandoned 14-year-old little Elaina had been raped by someone she trusted, and no one ever knew about it. No one came to comfort her. No one held her through the tears. She was alone, and a piece of her died. The innocent piece that only existed in the same plane as the one where her brother was alive, and would protect her no matter what, just like he always said he would. I hurt for her. I realize that this is common for people who have been manipulated and raped. Their minds block out the memory completely because their nervous system can't handle the shock. I spent a lot of time thinking I lived in the space that distanced survivors of rape and those of us women who were lucky enough to dodge that title. I was wrong. I lived on the wrong side of the margin. Embarrassment washed over me. At the time, I was 29 when I wrote this. At 29, and in the blink of an eye, I feel like I'm on a new journey now, a new journey of healing and forgiveness and swallowing the realization that things aren't always what they seem to be. I also realize that I am incredibly lucky to get an apology from my rapist. I know that many women receive hate, shame, blame, dismissal, and denial instead. Some don't even get that, and they don't get the privilege of blocking it out of their memories either. They relive it every single day. As I wrap up the last few months of my Saturn return, I realized that I had the dream about Paul so that I could learn the truth. Although I'm still trying to figure out what I should do with the truth, I'm still glad to know it. I'm left wondering how I can protect and love every single little girl and to make sure that she knows how special and important she is. And all I can do is let the little girl inside of me know instead. To little Elaina, I want you to know this. I love your imperfections, your sensitivity, and the unique way that you see the world. I cherish the authentic curiosity you have for people and the way that they love each other. You are smart enough. You are love. You are worthy. You deserved so much than you were ever given. The world is generally a good place, and you are welcome here. You are safe. You are loved beyond measure, and you are supported. You are perfect just the way you are in every single way. Grow, little one, grow. Reach higher. Dream bigger. Have courage to face the dark. I will always be here for you. You don't need forgiveness because you didn't do anything wrong. I will always protect you. And that's it.
So
It's a lot.
You're right, it is a lot, but it's the most beautiful, courageous statement. Like just the fact that you wrote it, that you've shared it, it's just so. I'm just inspired by your ability to overcome all the things that you've experienced, and again to share and to give others, a way to have strength. That you found strength yourself, and you went beyond that, and you're giving strength to others, and it's just. I'm just so honored just to have you have you be a human in this world, just being you, because it's like we are better off with people like you just sharing your story, because most people I feel are afraid, and understandably so. And you were afraid, and you took action while you were afraid. You didn't let that stop you, and that's what's so inspiring and courageous about you. And I really just honor you for being the gift that you are and sharing it with us.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I wonder if you could share a little bit about your journey from then to now. Like how, reading that today, how are you sitting with it and how are you feeling about it today?
Well, I actually wrote that 2 years ago. And I think that I wrote that like the night that I got home. And I haven't touched it. That's the only draft I've ever written. And I stumbled upon it recently with everything that's been going on in my life. Again, I've turned to writing, and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to be a writer. Like, I want to be a published author. I want this to be my career. I have a lot to say. I have a lot of stuff that's been going on, and I'm at a place where like I'm ready to get out there. And I was talking to my husband about it, and he's like, well, you should go through like your tub of stuff that you've written and just look around and see what's in there. And I came upon this story, and I actually completely forgot about it. Forgot about the story. I didn't forget about the experience. But I read it, and I was totally in awe, I guess, because I think I was in a lot of pain when I wrote it, and I knew that it was a pivotal moment in my growth as a woman and as a human. And there were a lot of opportunities for forgiveness and personal healing in it. And so I knew it was something I had to write about and document and then put away when I was ready to see it again. But when I saw it this time, I was really proud, to be honest. I felt a lot of pride in reflecting on where I've been and where I'm at now, and just how beautiful my life is. And a lot of the work that I've done around trauma, sexual abuse, and being open about it. Because, at the end of that story, I mean, I've truly always felt this way. And I know so many women that have endured sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And in my head, I was always like, man, that sucks for them. I can't imagine. When the whole time, that happened to me. I'm not exempt from that group of people, and that was really hard for me. It was really, really hard for me that I had to give pity to myself and be okay with feeling bad or sad for what happened to me. And that also takes courage for people that kind of bulldoze through hard times to get through to the other side. Sometimes it can be hard to sit with you and say, man, this is really shitty. This is bad. There is no bright side to this at the moment. Uh, I think sometimes when you are really heartbroken and you sit with yourself, it's like murder because you're feeling it, and I've done a lot of that since this was written, since 2019. And I'm really proud of how far it's gone, how far I've gotten with it. And I'm proud that I'm at a place where I can talk about it with other people, and I can ease myself into this group of unfortunate people who are also healers and lovers and mothers and impactful people in their own ways, in their own communities, through these really horrific situations. So, and the short answer is I'm proud of it. I feel good about it.
No,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. And when I just heard, and I mean, among the many things you said and what you just shared, just back to what you were saying earlier about meaning, is you made it mean others can grow, others can prosper, others can overcome their pain, and that's a greater meaning than survival mind of, oh, how do I look good, how do I survive. It's like you made it mean something greater than yourself, and that's what's so beautiful about it. And what's so beautiful about who you're being and your art and your writing is it's not about, it's the irony, it's not about you, but it is about you, but it's not about you, it's about something greater than you, which is you. But just so beautiful. Just your gift, your art, your stories, and your strength and perseverance through everything you're experiencing and still experiencing. It's just, again, it's just a testament to just what Matthew said earlier. That on the other side of our trauma lies wisdom, and I would say beauty as well, because it's who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a Mary Oliver poem that I really, really love, and I'm probably not going to say it right, but she says, someone once gave me a black box. No, she says, someone once gave me a box of darkness, and it took time for me to understand that this too was a gift. And it's so spot on with the things that happen in our lives. At the moment, you're like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And then life goes on, and you're like, oh, maybe that happened for me. Maybe that happened for my evolution.
Yeah, I think it was Stephen Levine who said, "Change the metaphor, change the world,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's a metaphor that we've looked at quite a bit, which is the difference between life happening to me and life happening for me, and that's a shift that I've very much appreciated in my life as well. Is recognizing that everything that's happening is something that I can use to grow bigger than what I was a moment before.
Yeah.
And there's something else that came up in all that too, which is a very dear friend of mine. Like we were talking about a lot of this several years ago, and it was myself, him, and two other women, and um, this subject came up of sexual abuse and trauma, particularly violence towards women from men. And one of the things he said that really resonated, like it's never left me. He said, "I want to live in a world where women don't have a reason to be afraid of men."
Mm-hmm.
And I want that too. Like I want that world almost more than anything else. Um, and the question has always been, how are we going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a big part of getting there is having conversations like this, like just you sharing this publicly, sharing your experience, where you're at with it, what's going on. And then the other part is men recognizing how much pain that actually causes and having the courage to speak out and apologize and own their actions. Um, but even more than that is coming to a place where all of us are no longer controlled by our fear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really deep questions that I feel like we don't ask enough in conversations. One of them is, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, with cancer and death. And the question is, what is death that we are so scared of it?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why, what is it that is something to be so avoided, so chastised, so
Mm-hmm.
shunned, so run from? Like, what exactly is it?
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, that resonates for me. When I was younger, I was, lack of better words, I was deathly afraid of death.
Me too.
I was like it was like paralyzing, and it was like the thoughts. It's like, oh, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. It's like, I can't believe I'm gonna die. And it was this experience, the thoughts, and again, it's an irony. The irony is the pain of death is the thought of it. It's not actually the death itself. It's like, it's what if my mind stops? It's like, if my mind stops, that means I can't think anymore. It means I can't watch my favorite show. It means I can't see my favorite people. It's like, oh my God, this is all coming. It's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to think. And it's like the fear of death is, I mean, for me, it was a trap, and I didn't want to. And it shows a lot in my own, my own growth of how I'm not only not afraid of it anymore, but I'm almost like curious. I'm like, oh, like what's in store? I can't even, it's when I realized my thoughts about death, as much as my thoughts about God are not the same thing as death itself or God. It's God, him or herself. It's like death it's like the fear is in the thought and in the trap and the meaning that we give it. And one more thing before we close, and just kind of just connect all the dots, because they've already eloquently very, very tied together. But just back to the garden analogy of, what we experience, just like your experiences that you've gone through, and the experiences I've gone through, the experiences Matthew's gone through. It's like, this is what the beautiful thing of a garden is like, it's redecorating. Like the things that are weeds. Maybe they were painful when they happened, or there certainly were for some cases. But it's like, when all of a sudden it's not something that we hide and we just try to attack and be angry that they exist. It's like, yeah, see, this was an ugly part of my life, but now I put it here, and it's something beautiful for me to share with you. And it doesn't cause me pain to think of this weed or to present this weed. So it's like, it transcends what was ugly. And it's like, and it's again, so it's like, it's redecorating, but it's rearranging the meaning of it was a negative thing to where it's something we have power over rather than it has power over us. And I think that's what this is. It's just transcending every weed in our life into a flower, transcending every every obstacle became an opportunity. Every piece of chaos became an opportunity for order. Everything that was in disarray everything that was fear-based became an opportunity to bring love to that. And it's like everything that we face that is an obstacle is something that, when we choose, can actually become something more beautiful than we can even imagine.
Absolutely. With the weed thing, I know we have to go, but when you were saying, oh, it's the most nutritious weed earlier, I don't know if you're talking about dandelion. They sell dandelion weeds at Whole Foods, man. And you can literally go in yes. And you go in your backyard and pick it. And that's the stuff that people throw away, which I think is fascinating and totally fits into what you're saying right now. So we have to wrap up, right?
Yeah, well, if I want to let you have any last thoughts before we close, I do have to run a little bit, but I want you
forever.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have you back, because we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, I would love
actually,
to have that.
On
Go
that
ahead.
note, hang out backstage after we close because I have a
Okay.
question for you before you go.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. This was a ton of fun. I can talk to you guys for a million years. So, really grateful. That's the first time I have ever read that out loud. You're the first person I've ever shared that with, Abraham. So, it was a really lovely opportunity to share that and just own it. And it feels really good. So, gratitude. Thank you so much.
Well, the gratitude is all mine, and it's such an honor. It's such an honor. Like this is why we hold this space. It's like who you are is such a you have your gift and your magic is. I want to share it with the world, and I
Yeah.
see every human has a unique, beauty, a unique experiences that will heal us all and that will make us ascend anything that our minds could even conceive. It's like beyond. That's what I'm inspired by, is what's possible when we go beyond what we think we want. It's when we actually experience something greater than we could even imagine was possible. Like that's the art I want to see. That's the food I want to taste. That's what this is about. This is a new paradigm for humanity, but just for, as Matthew said, it's a love based conversation. Fear
Yeah.
is not the driving force in our actions, in our thoughts, in our in what we're experiencing. We don't have to. We will all experience fear inevitably, but we don't have to act from it. We don't have to choose to be owned by it. And
Yeah.
and you, as you so eloquently done with your writing and with your sharing, it's like you're a testament to that. It's fear is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a growth. That's
Yeah.
something to grow. It can be something to take us, like what you're saying with the was it the 75 hard challenge? It's like
Mhm.
fear can be something to when we actually, it's like if I listen to fear like as a practice every time it's like, okay, every time if I was like a computer program, and every time it's like every time Abram feels fear, read this out, say this out loud, like what is there for me to learn from this, where is there for me to grow for this. I guarantee you, my every time, once that's a practice and a habit, every time there's fear, I'll actually almost be excited about being, it's like, oh, I'm afraid. It's like, what can I do? It's like it's
You
not
conquer
something
the
that's,
world.
yeah, yeah. And it's like we we are the creators of our own context, of our own worldview. And when we discover that, not only that truth, but discover our own power over what we're looking for, what we're committed to, despite what's happening, no matter what's happening, we can control how we respond. And that's what, again, what you inspire me, Elaina, is just the fact that with all of you've experienced, you still choose to shine and share your love and your light. And it's just, it makes us all better off, more than you or I or any of us could even measure. And it's just, thank you again for being who you are. And I can't wait to have you back again soon. And it's just an honor to have you.
Oh, thanks. It's nice. Appreciate it.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. I just wanted to echo what Abram said and just I'd throw one more little tidbit in there because like he was pointing to some things that I feel like a lot of people ignore. Um, so I'll just preface this by saying I'm not a Christian. Like I'm not religious at all. Um, but there were a lot of things that Jesus said that really hit home, and there's one in particular, and I feel like this is what everyone was pointing to. Greater things than this will you also do.
Mm,
You
that's
know,
good.
when my experience with this has been when I recognize the power that I have in creating my own context, that changes who comes into my life, how my life proceeds going forward. Like it is literally a matter of manifesting my own reality. And it's not quite habit yet. Like I still get caught up in the fear sometimes and but like noticing those moments where like, oh, I've been acting out of fear and then paying attention to the consequences of those actions versus when I have been just in the flow and trusting in what I call intuition. Some people call it God, some people call it angels, the higher selves, whatever. But like just trusting that and following that, the consequences are so much more awe-inspiring and joyful and easy. Like it's just, it's
Hmm.
easy.
Flowing.
Yeah, exactly. Greater things than this will you also do. And I feel like it's time to start remembering that.
I love that. Thank you so much for saying that to me. I'm actually going to write it down. I'm
Um,
serious. I'm writing it down.
Do it.
well,
Write it down before you
Elaina,
forget, because Abram's
yeah.
closing. So,
Well, I know I could talk to you for hours. This has been a beautiful conversation. I'm again, thank you so much, Elaina, for being with us. And I want to take a quick opportunity to invite you who are listening or watching to share your story, to share your gift. You know, I would assert no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe or don't believe, you have a unique gift that enriches us all. You have something that lights up this world, that you're something in your heart that when you are speaking about, when you're expressed in, you bring joy, you bring laughter, you bring an experience of wonder to everything around you in your environment, your friends, every people that don't even know you. And that's what I want to invite you to just share what you've experienced in your life, what you faced and overcome that have allowed you to see you, your uppercase S self. And or maybe what are you facing right now that you don't know who that is? Like this is an invitation for you to just be you, just the full, just warts and all, because who you are is beautiful. You have so many amazing things to offer this entire world. And I want to invite you to just share you. And that's what the stage is for you to be you. And our mission here one day is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And this is all part of our vision, which is humanity rising in a connected world where each person's unique gifts, genius, and contributions are valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. That's what this is about. And your story, it brings us all to that. You're sharing who you are, what you've experienced is what allows us all to get closer to that experience of what's possible when humanity recognizes the gifts of our neighbors and each other and holds that space for each other. But I just want to say thank you again to Elaina. Thank you, Matthew. We'll see you all next week. I love you all. Be safe, be well. And as always, one day is today. Peace, everybody.